Good evening and welcome. Slightly different time, 5 o'clock on Saturday. Joining us tonight, Mark Stallard. We've just been getting all the 5 p.m. results in. Only result that really mattered to us all, I guess. Well, actually, there were two results, weren't there? I suppose, if you're going to be blunt about it. Our win and Halifax's win on Good Friday sets us up for a National League blockbuster in every sense of the word. We'll be previewing that game tonight with freshly rejuvenated back from his jollies. Mark Stallard. Good evening, Mark.
Evening, Paul.
Yes, we should also, at the top of the show, I think, before we go any further, pay our respects and I think pass on thanks to everybody for the utmost professionalism and the very respectful way Jason Turner's family, Notts County staff, all fans, players, executives and officials from all other clubs really across the country paid their final respects to Jason Turner, who sadly passed away best part of 10 days ago now. So it was impeccably observed. It's great to see Jason's mum and dad and so many members of his family coming up. Clearly a terrible time for everyone, but certainly Jason given a rousing send-off by everyone connected with the club. Just very quickly, Mark, a few words from yourself. This was something, I think, a passing of someone that no one had really expected and really did. It wasn't just a case of the Notts County family paying their respects. It was the whole of the football family, as far afield as, Ryan Reynolds on his Twitter feed, paying respects to Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that sort of grabbed you in reading all the tributes. Obviously, the shock anybody gets taken at that age, 50 years of age, no age nowadays, suddenly. And absolutely, when you read the tributes from players, at Notts and other places, staff, players from and officials from other clubs. It just goes to show you the regard that he was held in, not just at Notts, but throughout his career. It's not just, people eulogising it and giving their platitudes. There were real, heartfelt, sincere stories, and a lot of them from different avenues, all saying the same thing about how he gave time for others. He was selfless, how hardworking he was, single-minded, and professional, and he would be a massive miss for Notts County, but obviously a massive miss as well in the world of football, because in his role or roles that he takes on for Notts, he's obviously in contact with everybody, every other club, at various different levels, the leagues, so he was well known throughout the game, and it was a massive shock, to everybody, and he will be a massive loss to Notts County. We were speaking to people yesterday and the staff, and they're saying that the place just doesn't feel the same since he's not been there, and I think they're still in shock a little bit as to not having him around every day, because he was, like I say, a lively, likable character, hardworking, diligent, ultimately a winner, but a fantastic character, fantastic person, and a massive miss. And yeah, absolutely. Yesterday again was sort of hair raising. The sort of tribute, impeccably observed, celebration of his life, of course. The minute silence, and credit to Wealdstone and their fans who joined in and paid their respects as well. And you hear about this football family, don't you, from time to time? Yes, we all have our rivalries. There's plenty of hate, banter, whatever you want between clubs, but when it really matters, football generally pulls together, and it certainly has done on this occasion.
Well said, Stel. Plenty of comments coming in from all our flock. Chris Gosling says, evening all. What a day yesterday was. Emotional, exhilarating and ecstatic, all rolled into 90 minutes. Evening from Derek Gill, as it is from Paul Huskisson and Dale Pikett. Paul Huskisson, I'm nervous but confident for Monday. Chris Gosling, I bet somewhere in the National League fixtures, the National League fixtures secretary and the BT Sports scheduling director are congratulating each other. The biggest non-league game ever played. Happy Easter, says Duncan Combury. Dylan Room, thank you to Wealdstone too. It was very moving when they joined in the chants for Jason, what you just picked up upon. Stell, evening from Kay. Kel Foster, Jason Turner was always good to speak to, going to be missed dearly. Luke Walsh, VNL podcast from Halifax. You're welcome, Knots, for yesterday. Yeah, you'll get a lot of. Yeah, if you ever need a drink, Luke, in the next 24 hours in Nottingham, I'd come down quickly. Scott Taylor, evening, Paul and Stell. Luke says they were nothing yesterday, lads. This is Wrexham. Elliot Lee and Paul Mullin were the only real dangers, and we just put 2 men on Mullin. You're not going to get a better opportunity to beat them tomorrow. Okay. Right. Let's dive into it, Stell. No, I'll tell you what. Before we dive into it, I don't know what everybody's been doing the past few days, getting ready for Wrexham, but I doubt any of us have had such a pleasurable preparatory period as Mark Stallard, who professional footballers should never, ever, 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 Stell. 25 years, never went on holiday, Leicester. You should never go on holiday during the football season. You've had about 6.5 weeks somewhere in the Indian Ocean on a very posh island called Mauritius, haven't you?
Well, 6.5 weeks is pushing it. 2 weeks, yeah. We had a couple of weeks there. Yeah, very lucky, very, very nice, and refreshed and ready for the promotion push. I mean, what's not to like? Yeah.
Were you dialing in on some app or something to listen to the Notts games while you were on the beach?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we went on the beach because the time different. We listened to the Accrington game, which was obviously a night game. Well, that kicked off. It was nearly midnight, so listen to that. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't makes me sound a little bit sad, doesn't it? Really, being in Mauritius, but it is. You need to know, don't you? Need to know that would kicked off with a night game. That was about a midnight kick-off over there. Then who else was it? Barnet. Yeah, listen to that. Yeah, no, not so good. Certainly, second half didn't sound clever at all. And it was Scunthorpe. Yeah, that was walking apart, wasn't it? But seemed like a good performance. But yeah, it's glad to be back. I don't like not being able to see the games. I didn't like not playing in them, and I don't like not being able to see them now. So, but yes, I certainly was. Yeah, listening from afar. Yeah.
Yeah, were you not allowed to pay your tenner? And or is the technological know-how not there for you to pay the tenner and watch the game?
I had to get the missus to be able to tune into, was it BBC Sounds we had to listen on? So I had no idea whether we could have watched it or not. I mean, to be fair, out there, the internet and getting just text messaging and stuff wasn't brilliant. But yeah, no, tune in. And I did like Dave. It was Dave commentator. I forget which game it was. With Will Smith. It must be the Scunthorpe game. Will Smith playing. And Charlie did me with some Men in Black comments or Fresh Prince comments that went way over my head years ago when he played for Harrogate. And Dave come out with his Will Smith get it, but it's not getting jiggy with it. I thought, well, at least I can relate to that. At least I understand that sort of quote. So yeah, I was listening. That's proof positive I was listening. But yeah, I said I don't know if it shows me in good light or bad light, but you've got to listen. The way this season's gone, you can't not.
Okay. I'm just reading some of the comments there. We've got some Wrexham fans on. All is welcome. Top Cat says, we had an off day. Will be a different story Monday. Come on, you Reds. Kel Foster, who's your keeper for Monday, lads? He asked. Remy Sky from Stateside. What a time to be a supporter, lads. Kay, I think there has been so much tension at home matches yesterday. When the Wrexham score came through, felt like a weight had been lifted. Evening all from a very sunny Leon Solent, says Shane Walker. It's been pretty. I've done a bit of gardening. It's been pretty on the bunts. It's been a pretty sunny here as well, actually. Okay, so Stel. I mean, if you were scripting, a match outside the Football League, this would kind of be it, wouldn't it? This would be it. And of course, it was never not a massive game, but a combination of the results on Good Friday adds even more to it, even more to it. is it advantage Notts or well? How do Wrexham react? Because on the face of it, you would have thought Wrexham would have been relatively confident. Home game, don't get beat, and they're not far off. Now, different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a massive believer. Certainly not when you're talking about Notts and Wrexham this season. You're absolutely right. You couldn't script this to be any bigger. Certainly with the results yesterday. But you talk about how do teams react. Well, both teams have reacted pretty well to losing, haven't they? They've only lost 5 games between them all season. Notts have reacted well when they've lost, and Wrexham have reacted well when they've lost previously. So, you know, does that give Wrexham a wake-up call? Yes, it does. Will it make them potentially a little bit nervous? Does it give Phil Parkinson a potential selection headache? Does he make changes? It might be a one-off, of course. They're not regularly getting beat, but he'll have a selection dilemma before the game. There's loads of things thrown into the mix, and that's what football is great for. That's what sport is great for. We all try to read loads of things into stuff. What will matter is between 3 o'clock and 5 to 5 or whenever it finishes on Monday. It's whichever team performs the best will win it. Have Notts got an advantage? I'll tell you if they've got an advantage when I see the pitch. When we get up there and see the pitch, I think the better the pitch is, the bigger advantage I'll give Notts because of the way they play. But, I mean, we are talking, when we talk anything either way between Notts and Wrexham this season, we're talking absolute hairbreadth stuff, width of a gnat's what's it. There's not a great deal between them. There hasn't been all season. The records, whatever you want to look at, the 100 points, the 100 plus goals that they both scored, tell you everything you need to know that these are two teams head and shoulders above anything else at this level, but really well matched. So when you get two juggernaut teams going at each other, fine margins generally separate them on the day, no matter what level of football you're talking about. So, look, Notts on paper, and football isn't played on paper, but Notts on paper, you would say are slightly in the better position because when Notts dropped points at Barnet, 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, you'd maybe say, as Luke Williams did, that's it. With their games in hand, with the way they're going, we've probably just maybe blown it a little bit. And after yesterday, it is absolutely balanced on a knife edge. It's not winner takes all by any means, because if Wrexham win, then I think you've got to say that probably is it.
Yeah.
But if Notts win, it's not over, but it puts them in the box seat because of the goal difference swing. And then you look at the games running in. But look, it's that close. I'm as confident as I can be for Notts going into a game against an equally good team, if you like. But like I say, I feel more confident when I see the state of their pitch.
Okay. Here's a few thoughts from our flock. Chris Gosling, has a league game ever been contested by two teams on over 100 points? Certainly not in the National League, and I would doubt anywhere else, Chris. More pressure on Wrexham than us now, says Royston. Ian Cooksey, 4 wins for Notts equals job done, says Ian Cooksey. Top Cat, a draw. Our Wrexham man, a draw would be good enough for Wrexham. Ian Wheat, this is the biggest game the National League has or will ever see, 100%. Dylan Room says pressure is on Notts. We have to win. Wrexham can take a draw and might just sit back like Yeovil at home. Remy Sky from the States, good to see you, Chris. Thanks for returning my message. Driving in Manhattan at the moment. Yeah, good luck with that. Alex Jackson, evening all. Exciting, isn't it? Chris Gosling, if Notts are top after we've played Woking, we'll win the league. Goalkeepers. Let's start just picking a few things still. Archie Mayor's come back in ahead of Tiernan Brooks. we're not quite sure what the status is. I'm not anyway. You may well be with Mr. Slocum. Clearly, there's a debate about Wrexham's goalkeeper at the minute with Ben Foster. Do you have any insight on whether Sam may be fit or not? It would clearly, because clearly you would expect the number of times the ball will be put into the box by Wrexham, our keeper, irrespective of how we perform in terms of possession and all the rest of it, you would expect your centre halves or your backline and your goalkeeper to be having to earn their corn, wouldn't you?
Yeah, certainly with long throws at Bentosa and getting the ball into the box. I don't know which way they're going to go. Sam Dolby's been playing up front for them alongside Mullin in recent games. But yeah, then they're not averse to putting the ball in the box. Of course they're not. And on their own patch, they've dropped 2 points all season. An absolutely phenomenal home record. You talk about making your home ground a fortress. Well, they've absolutely done it. They've epitomised it. So again, you weigh that up and you go, cracky, it's a big task for Notts, but a task that they're capable of. Now, you talk about goalkeepers. I've no inside knowledge, no extra knowledge. Now, I would look at it from the outside in with no other knowledge of whether Sam's going to be available, when he's going to be available, and say the fact that he wasn't even on the bench, but there was a keeper on the bench. Tiernan was on the bench yesterday, tells me that he's not ready. And if he's not ready Friday, I doubt he'd be ready Monday. So I think it'll be Archie Mayer keeps his place. He's not done anything wrong. I think his size, not that Tiernan's a small lad, and Tiernan, not really done anything wrong when he played his games. But again, shows you the nature of football. He comes into the team, does well, goes away on international duty. Archie Mayer comes in, takes his chance, performs well, keeps the jersey. So for me, I think Archie Mayer starts. I think his size will be part of that. But it's a big test, big test for anybody. It's a massive game. It's a test for all the players about temperament, mentality, and that doesn't matter whether you talk about Ben Foster for them at 30, whatever he is, with all the experience in the world, or Archie Mayer on loan from Norwich at 21. It is going to be a big test because it's all about that 90 minutes, all the talk, all the build-up, all the nerves, all the excitement. It's all about the 90 minutes or, whatever they play with the injury time. But that's what it's about. It's about performing. All the excuses go out the window. All the hypothesizing that we're doing now goes out the window because the game will be played and we'll have cold, hard facts and evidence in front of us of our own eyes, of watching it, seeing what happens and going, yeah, that was the right decision. No, that wasn't the right decision. He had a nightmare. He had a great game. And we'll be able to divulge it like that. So it's a massive test of everybody's temperament. Wrexham's players, for certain reasons, like say, pressure on them. They're probably the favourites. All the hullabaloo that's around them. Their home record. They are at home. They'll have a big crowd. They'll be expected to win the game. And Notts maybe can take a bit of pressure off them, but there'll be pressure on them because Notts can't afford not to win the game, really.
Yes.
So it's just a fantastic dynamic. Every which way you look at it, every which possible scenario, and as people might have said there about will Wrexham play for a draw? Not a chance. Not a chance. There's any team, if you're talking Champions League level, Premier League level, teams can set up. They've got such good technical players. They can set up in a way to try and nullify. They're not playing for a draw as such. They'd never admit it, but they would take a draw. We're talking National League level. Yes, we've got players, and Wrexham got players that are a level or two maybe above, but they're not good enough and we're not good enough to go out there and play for a draw. So you go out there to play to win the game, and the best team on the day you'd like to think wins it. It's just absolutely mouthwatering because every single angle, every single potential result can lead to a different outcome, and it's just going to be fascinating. And as we all know, that it's the biggest game in the national scene by a long chalk.
You're picking the team. Okay. How much do you pick a team on Notts' own merits? And how much, perhaps for this game, do you pick a team to match up and nullify some of the strengths that Wrexham have? So if you're looking in the back line, Stell, Connell didn't start, though he has been relatively recently. is Connell someone you would look to bring back specifically to counter the threats of Wrexham from a back line? We'll come on to Ruben in a minute. I think we all know the answer to that one. But how much do you pick a team to nullify them?
No, well, I do. If I was picking the team throughout the season, I would do no different to what I've done all season. Now, every manager, coach, head coach, has a different way of selecting the team based on these red flags they get through fitnesses and knocks and who needs resting and all that. But when it comes purely on the tactical side of things, some managers, yes, will have an element of looking at the opponents, right, horses for courses. Does he suit? Does he nullify that? Will he be a threat against their opponent in different areas of the pitch? And other managers don't really they go, I'm going to pick my best team, and I trust my best team that if we play and play well, then we're good enough, we'll win the game. And I think Luke Williams will fall into the latter of that category. I think I would, certainly the way Notts have played this season. And I'm sure Phil Parkinson, I mean, this could be flipped over the other way, and Phil Parkinson exactly the same. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. So just because you're playing an opponent that's up there in the table with you, you've got to go with what you think is your strongest team, i.e. the team that is best equipped to win the game. That doesn't mean doing something different from what you've done for 41 games so far this season, or 42 games this season. It means picking the best team with the best players that are in the best shape. Now, as we know, Luke Williams has made changes, 2 or 3 changes each game. He rotates and tinkers a little bit. So I'm not expecting the same team from Friday at all. I think Ruben will come back in for sure, as long as he is fit. At the back, again, part of it will come down to whether they think Richard Brindley, who's been out for a while, can do 2 games in 4 days.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Connell comes back in, but that might have been the plan anyway. That might have been the plan anyway. Get Richard Brindley some minutes in his legs against, the deemed weaker opposition in Wealdstone. No disrespect to them at all. But in a game where we're at home, we should have more of the ball. He'll be playing with the ball more than without the ball. That's a better game to come back into, rather than Richard Brindley coming back into, right, I want you back fit, but it's straight into the Wrexham game with no minutes in your legs. So it might well be that Brins will come back out and Connell will come back in anyway. That might be part of the plan. And, that's the way to get minutes into Brins' legs, rather than leaving it till after the Wrexham game when we've only got 3 games left anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised at them 2 changes. I think that the more interesting is who Ruben comes in for. I think that's an interesting discussion and not cut and dried. But other than that, I don't see too many other changes from Friday.
Okay. Ian Cooksey says replace Jody Jones with Ruben from Friday, and that should be the starting lineup. Chris Garsing says Aaron Nemane is key on Monday. The more attacking he does, the less Mendy does. James Shipley, 100%. Naman v Mende could be key. Couple of the guys have mentioned that they would like to see, irrespective of who is in goal as your first choice keeper, they would like to see a second keeper on the bench, rather than, as has happened certainly for the majority of the rest of the season, Notts have only gone with the one keeper, which I think is an interesting point. Chris Gosling, I'd rather have Connell back in over Brindley. We need his aerial ability to defend the bombardment of throw-ins. Rollo was a man mountain last season there. I do remember that game, Chris, you're absolutely right. Dylan Room says, watching Halifax, they were direct and ran at Wrexham, and their defence looked poor. So I'd be starting someone tricky like Jones, but also Ruben and Austin pretty much pick themselves. LRR34X, I've no idea what that means. I think Jim O'Brien starts over Bostock for me. Chris Gosling, I think Bostock coming off early suggests him and Matty start. Top Cat, I don't think Mendy or Barnett will play. Expand, please, Top Cat, if you can. Or is it your turn to play mind games on our flock? After I suspect you would have thought Luke Williams was playing mind games a few weeks ago when he said the title was yours. James Shipley, I think Rollo, Baldwin, Cameron for physicality reasons at the back. If Bostock and Palmer can dominate possession, that nullifies a lot of Wrexham's threats. Yeah, I did pick up on a couple of the points, and I just heard the tail end of you picking up on Luke Williams' interview, where Luke very much after Friday afternoon downplayed the result, didn't he? Didn't think we played very well in the first half, weren't at it, weren't here, weren't there, disappointed with this, that and the other. You know, my take, Stel, was I think identical to yours. He's keeping the players. Just don't get too carried away. We haven't beaten Wrexham. There's an opportunity there now that there wasn't at 3:00, but hey, hang on, just because there's a danger sometimes, isn't there, Stel, that because Wrexham have got beat, because we've won, we're favourites for this game, we're going to do this. For me, he was just trying to keep a lid on things. Clearly, confidence is going to be sky high after that result in any case.
Yeah, of course. I mean, crikey, you don't need to be a qualified psychologist to know, you know, what managers say and what happened on Saturday, but Friday. Yeah, he's done exactly the right thing. Try to keep, and he's right. You know, we have achieved nothing. Wrexham have achieved nothing. Said it all the way through the season. It's not just words. Nobody does anything. Nobody achieves anything until 46 games have been played by everybody. That's the only time you achieve or don't achieve something. And the unbelievable scenario we're at is for ourselves and Wrexham. One of these teams will not achieve what they probably deserve to achieve based on the 46 games come the end of the season. And then they're going to have to win 2 games to get through the playoffs. Now, like I say, the debate about 3 up, 3 down and we're that good, we both teams should go up automatically is irrelevant. But what Williams is doing, I think every manager, if the roles were reversed, Phil Parkinson would have done the same. You hadn't achieved anything just by, again, control the controllables. All we can deal with, all we can sort out, all we can have a hand in are Notts games, Notts results. So make sure you do your bit, and what happens will happen. And again, vice versa. And gloves on the other hand, with Wrexham, they can only control their results. Now we're in a better position than we were Friday morning, but you'd still have to say Wrexham are favourites. Home game against Notts, game in hand, same points, same goals, game in hand. They're still favourites. But again, does that put extra pressure on them? Does that just fog the thinking, cloud the thinking of do they go into tomorrow's? I think Notts players, and the message from Luke Williams will be absolutely crystal clear. We need to win this game. Anything else is not good enough. Anything else, of course, we don't want to get beat, but we'd sort of have to accept a draw, but we need to go in to win the game. All right? Simple. Go and win the game. Wrexham is not quite that crystal clear. And to put that in practical terms, Wrexham, a draw will sort of do them. Keep things as we were before the start. It's in their hands then. But when you've got that in your mind sometimes as a player, what does that mean? How does that manifest itself in terms of how will that affect the game? It's just talk. Well, if you're a wing back, we talk about potentially Mendy and Naman could be a great battle. Barnett and Chickson on the other side could be, real key battle in the game. Obviously, we depend on who's picked. There'll be battles all over. Midfield players, do they push on? Do they gamble? Do you go forward when, we don't want to lose this game. Let's just be safe. Let's just stay goal side of the ball. Let's not go and make a marauding run. Whereas if you've got the mentality, we've got to win the game, then you've got to make that forward run. Yeah, let's go and press. Let's go and be high up the pitch like we want to be. Midfield players, yeah, I'm going to release myself to make that attacking run, to make that forward movement because we need to win the game. And of course, with that mentality, that can change in the game as a goal goes in, as the situation changes. You see it at all levels. Psychology plays a massive part in the physical movements that players make and the physical decisions that players make. And the clearer the decision-making process can be, then generally that helps. So pre-game, I think that is possibly clearer for Notts. Slightly. We're talking minute percentages. But I think Notts have got to try and win the game. Nothing else will do. For Wrexham, they're not going to gamble to win the game if it means they could risk potentially conceding and losing the game. So maybe Notts have just got a slightly clearer head going into it, but again, we're talking small margins.
Andy Blatherwick, get into them early. 2-0 Notts at half time and wait for the gaps in the second half. There you go. Simples. Ian Cooksey, I don't think Notts are capable of playing for a draw. That's why I think they will get the win. Kel Foster says Frankie Vincent played excellent yesterday. Ian Cooksey, yes please, Andrew Blatherwick. Your score summation sounds acceptable. Chris B says midfield of Bostock, Palmer, Badge and Ruben for me, Jones and Austin as subs. Oreo are faces, something like that. Certainly makes sense for Wrexham to play it safe and counters on the break. That's what scares me. I'll tell you one player we've not mentioned yet, but I think it was very good to see him back playing. Kedwin Scott. His dad came over and had a quick chat with me beforehand. He'd had the shoulder injury, and then he picked up a hip injury, and that's what would been keeping him out. And then he had a slight illness as well, so he's been out for a little while. You would clearly not expect him to be starting tomorrow, but certainly strengthens that bench up while he's getting back to full fitness, and quite an important option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you come to important games, you want as many of your squad fit and ready as possible. Now, obviously, he's not going to be match fit for 90, and don't think anybody's considering that. But when you've got a goal scoring option like he is, then a great option to have on the bench should you need him. And also further afield, should the worst happen, you want to be getting minutes into these players. You want them back fit and ready and raring to go. Should we drop into the playoffs, and have them 2 games to play, or potential 2 games to play. You want players. You don't want players who are rusty, not played for months. You want them to have minutes in their legs, to be fully fit, to be ready to go. Because, like I say, it is relentless. Football, professional sport, is relentless. There's no let up, as we see yesterday. Wrexham have an off day, and it brings everything back into view. Everything's possible now. They haven't had many off days, just like Notts haven't. But when you do have one, it absolutely costs you. And look how different things look, and everything feels differently. So, yeah, it's massive to have Kedwin back. I think he's been a bit of an unsung hero, really, this season. Obviously, Macca takes all the plaudits and all the headlines for his goal scoring feats. But like I say, Kedwin playing just, not as that main striker, but to come up with 14 goals and, be out injured. Great to have him back for the running.
Dale Pikett, Monday will be a huge test because we have not faced a team who are going to press us like any other team. Chris Gosling says, Wrexham only know one way to play. That's not a criticism. It served them well. Both teams will go for the win. Stephen Milek says Notts need to score first. Shane Walker, first and last goals, 2-0 Notts. I suppose how interesting would it be, Stel, to kind of see 2 contrasting styles, as we've mentioned thousands of times, on any other given season, if there'd only been a Wrexham or there'd only been a Notts County in this division, both teams would have been promoted. Wrexham have played in a certain way, Notts have played in another. Stylistically, how do you see everything matching up?
Well,
in this particular 90 minutes.
I mean, I don't see it being too dissimilar to the game at home. The game at home I thought was a great barometer. Yeah. How there was only 1 goal in it, I mean, nobody knows. But as I remember, and my memory plays tricks on me frequently, but as I remember, first 20 minutes we were awesome. I thought we played them off the park. They couldn't get the ball off us. We played right at top tempo, kept the ball, moved it really well. Rest of the first half was. I think we would have better got the goal. We were the better team, and went in 1-0 obviously at half time. And then second half, I thought they came out, got about us, and caused us all sorts of problems. And we were hanging on a little bit, in the second half. So I thought we dominated the first half. They dominated the second half. I certainly had the better of the second half as my and the score could have been 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 anyway, and you wouldn't have come away going, well, that's not a fair reflection of the game. I don't see it being dissimilar tomorrow. I've for some reason I've got 3-2 to Notts in my head for tomorrow. Not tomorrow, Monday.
Hey, the
Because
goalkeepers will love you.
well, I just can't not I can't see it not with the atmosphere with what's at stake. I think there's going to be cut and thrust about the game and the attacking talent that's in both teams. I think, despite both of them having good defensive records, you've got to say that they're both teams are better going forward than defending. And I think when they play against each other, I mean, again, people will be saying, "Oh, cue the 0-0s," or whatever. But I just don't see it. I think there could be plenty of goals tomorrow, Monday. Oh God, I keep thinking today's Sunday, obviously, because we played at
We're all
3 o'clock
Easter
yesterday. But
weekend, absolutely.
yeah, but stylistically, obviously, there's a difference in the two. I've not seen too much of Wrexham. Obviously, I saw them at home, and I've seen bits of them on the box and highlights for what you can judge from that. Nobody, and I think you could go into League Two and possibly part way into League One. Nobody plays football like Notts or attempts to play football like Notts do. I'm not saying they don't play. Teams can't do it better than Notts at the higher levels, but the way Notts play is, the way they mix it up well, but they generally try and play. And the football they've produced has been excellent. But to say it's a contrast of styles, Wrexham obviously don't play quite the same way, but they're obviously doing something right. They've got a team shape and a philosophy and a way of doing things that works because they're sat there on 100 points with 100 plus goals, which I say, and both teams, it comes down to talent in the players. You don't get there without talent. There's talented players in the division at other clubs, but they ain't got the teams to 100 points and 100 plus goals. So there's talent, obviously, but then it's that team unity, that play and that pattern of play, whatever it might be, and people will. I think the sort of easy comparison is to say, well, Notts play total football, if you like, whereas Wrexham will go a bit more direct. But Notts go direct. Look at some of Notts' goals. They mix it up. So that's what good teams do. You can't just be a one-trick pony. Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, you'll see them hitting 40, 50-yard balls in the Premier League at the top level. You have to mix it up because if you are one-trick ponies, then any half-decent coach and half-decent team will be able to set up against you and nullify you. So for both teams to be so dominant all season, then they're strong and they've got a strong way of playing in a way that works, a way that is effective. So yes, there will be two different ways of going about it, but it's not. I think it's a little bit lazy. So it's going to be Wrexham hoofing it and us trying to play crisp football. It's not going to be like that at all. It's going to be two really good teams who are going to be working their socks off, knowing what's at stake to try and get around and prevent, as well as impose your style and get the one up in the duels around the pitch and get your team on the front foot. The other team's going to try and stop it. You've got to try and stop the other team from doing what they want to do. You've got to upset them as well. So it's not just about being good in possession of the ball. It's being good out of possession of the ball as well. And both teams must work their socks off to be where they are.
I'm reminded of one of many sayings that Martin O'Neill would tell me, and there's a wonderful one about when he was training at Forest, and there's an old coach talking to him, and he said, "Martin," he said, "when you get a reputation for being an early riser, you don't need to get up until 11 in the morning. Think about that. When you get a reputation for being out of bed early, you don't need to get out of bed till 11. The point he's making there, once you gain a reputation for a certain something, that kind of sticks. And I think the point you've raised there, it's almost like if you're in the Notts camp, a section of our fan base will say Wrexham play football, in a manner of the devil incarnate. Yeah. And Notts County will play more of a passing game than Real Madrid. Yeah. The reality is neither is true. And while you may have differences, as you've just said, I don't think it's quite as anywhere near as polarised as people make out. I think James Shipley in the comments says, I like the addition of long ball over the high line to our play. Wasn't there earlier in the season. It certainly wasn't there under the previous manager. And if we look, Archie Mayer and Sam Slocum, they'll often hit a longer ball now, won't they? Now, if you had a reputation for being a long ball, everyone would latch on and say, you play long ball. But because our reputation is such, then it largely doesn't get commented upon. So do you think, for instance, tomorrow, you got me at it now, Monday,
Yeah.
Do you think Wrexham stick a high press on Notts to stop Notts playing the ball?
I think they will.
Inside their own 18-yard box.
If that's what they've been doing, and if that's what Phil Parkinson thinks is their strength, based on the team that he picks, and again, you look at personnel. What can you do with your personnel? I thought when they were playing with Ollie Palmer earlier on in the season, you think, well, you can't really do a high press because he's not going to get about. Mullin will obviously, and the midfield players and the wing backs will obviously get about all day long. But then you're carrying somebody who maybe isn't. It's the Ronaldo at Man United thing, isn't he? They've swapped him for a Burnley loanee, haven't they? But he fits into what Ten Hag wants. So it's finding a way that works for the team with the personnel. Like I say, I can't say with any certainty because I've not seen enough of Wrexham to say, oh, this is definitely how they're going to do it in terms of pressing. They're definitely going to press high. I think they're probably more mobile with Dolby if playing up front. But they've just signed Billy Waters. They might throw a curveball, play him, and then if they've got Billy Waters and Mullin, they're going to run all day long. Two Duracell bunnies going to be at you all day. So again, you've got all different aspects at play. Don't both teams or both managers, head coaches will not be set for one way of doing it because they know there are options and alternatives. Yes, you've got to play your way, but like you say about not play direct at times from the keeper over the top. We got a goal Saturday from one of them, albeit horrendous defending from Wealdstone. But yeah, we saw Macca's goal at Chesterfield. Sam picked him out over the top. This is not new. This has been in football since the dark ages, since I was playing. You don't you turn a team around to give yourself space. If you want to play to feet, turn a team around. We used to say early doors, first 10, 15, turn them around. It's a little bit more nuanced than that now, but mix it up. Again, if you do the same thing over and over again, then any dummy team can come and nullify that. You've got to mix it up. You've got to have that element of surprise and not be predictable. So will Wrexham play with a high press? I expect them to, because a little bit like Wealdstone started doing Saturday, and like a lot of teams have started doing, you've got to say that Notts are strong when they're able to set that base, get the ball passing, get the ball moving it through the thirds, and getting runners, and you get overwhelmed, and it's just weight of pressure until the dike breaks, if you like. Whereas I think Wrexham will back themselves to be good enough to go and get in their face and go, we ain't going to give you the time on the ball. We ain't going to allow you. If you want to have it in tight situations, if you want to play little 1v1 duels, certain areas of the pitch, we'll allow that because we'll back ourselves to be better than you. And that is where it comes down to who wins the individual duels on the day. Who wins them battles moreover in different areas of the pitch. I say, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. But having said that, Phil Parkinson might go, you know what, we'll just sit off, let them come on, let them have the ball in areas we don't mind, and then we will spring. And he might, we'll use Mullin's pace and clever running, and, we'll play Dolby, who's a bit more mobile, whilst also being physical, Barnett down one side, Mendy down the other, if they're playing. There's loads of ways. With good teams are less predictable than others. And again, I mean, no disrespect whatsoever to Wealdstone. I think are doing brilliant. Stuart Maynard, I think, has done brilliant for them. But on yesterday's game, to me, and I said it on the radio, it was a case of they play in a manner similar to Notts. They want to play out from the back, play through the thirds and all that, and move players around to create overloads. But the problem is when you do that against a team that essentially, without being rude to them, are better than you at doing it, you come undone. And generally in football, generally in sport, the better teams, the better players who are doing the same thing, the better team will come out on top. And that's what happened yesterday. It's happened a few times this season. So again, that makes the game even more interesting, that there is this slight contrast of styles, the contrast of how to go about winning games. let's face it, both teams have very nearly perfected winning games this season, but doing it in slightly different ways, but also being flexible to do it slightly differently when the need arises.
80 Clark says, let's hope we get a decent ref. Don't want Mullins' pen to score. Steph Minott, how many opposition managers have complimented Luke Williams and Notts' style of play, stating they are the best footballing team in the division? The nation will see that on Monday with a bit of luck. Andrew Blatherwick makes the point, you mentioned it earlier in the programme, so Notts might not be able to zip the ball around on their pitch. I think when we had Nathan from Rob Ryan Red on an earlier podcast this year, I think a lot of us hadn't fully appreciated. Wrexham train on their pitch a lot, if not most of the time. Their training ground that's being developed isn't quite ready yet, so they train on the pitch. One of the consequences of that, it is not quite the pristine carpet that you might imagine. Paul Willett says Wrexham looked poor at the back yesterday. They were cut open with ease. Steph Milek adds, Notts high press them. We have the quality and fitness to do it. Start quick and get at them. Make them retreat so they can't press us as they'd like to. Chris Gosling, Wrexham have to do very little defending with the way they set up, but when teams get a chance to have a go at them, it does show their frailties. Could maybe say the same about us, I guess. Steph Milek says, I've stopped pondering it, and I'm predicting a Notts 3-1 away win. That's it. I've said it. I think you've made the point, Stel, earlier. The onus really is on Notts to win. A draw, because I think Adam Summerton, the BT Sports commentator, makes the point. We're actually at a situation right now where it is, and we talk about controllables, it is in the hands of, very unusual this, it is in the hands of both teams. It's in their own destiny to win the title. But clearly, for Notts have to win tomorrow. Wrexham don't, for it to remain in each other's camp, if you like. And you and I were talking before the programme starts. You have that potentially quite bizarre scenario where if Notts were to win, let's tick that box, but Wrexham were then to win their game in hand, we're level going into those final games. And ultimately, it is actually still then in the hands of both teams, because it comes down to goal difference. And if in the final 3 games, Wrexham were to win all 3 games by a cumulative total of 4 or 5 more goals than Notts, they would win it. So, this is a quite incredible potential run-in were Notts to win the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you've got the potential for both teams to finish level on goals, level on goals conceded, level on points, and I've not even looked into what happens then. So, but we'll not go down that route. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, both teams been nip and tuck pretty much all season, and we've been looking towards this game probably since the last time we played them at our place, saying, "Oh, it's going to all hinge on that." Now, I don't think even back then we knew quite how much was going to hinge on it. And it's as tight as it can be. If Notts win, let's go positive. If Notts win tomorrow, then we're going to assume Wrexham win all their games. We're going to assume Notts win all their games to the end of the season. But Notts will at least come out of it with 5-goal advantage.
Yeah.
3 currently. If we win by 1, that makes it 5 because they lose 1, obviously. But they'll have a game in hand. Now, quite conceivably, they could win their game in hand by 5. And both teams could be level on games, level on points, level on goal difference. So it's just absolutely incredible. And this is what sets the game up, the fixture up for. It's so big, so big, and every possible outcome is possible. But again, and then we go past this game, which we don't want to do because let's enjoy it and revel in it and be nervous up to it and look forward to it. But nobody saw them losing to Halifax.
No.
So they might lose to Barnet. They might lose to Boreham Wood. They might lose to I can't remember who else they've got to play. Just like we might lose to Maidstone or Woking. We've got, after this, there are other games. It's not done as us. This is all what makes it almost better than. I was speaking to somebody last night saying, well, it's almost like a playoff final, except a playoff final, you've got a definite prize at the end of the game. Here, there is no prize for the winner tomorrow. Yes, we can say, oh, well, if Wrexham win, they've probably won it, but they've still got to go and do it in 4 other games. And if they have a wobble, like they have done at Wrexham, at Halifax, then who knows what can happen. So it's like a playoff final, whereby there is no prize at the end of it. You've still got to keep going. You've still got to keep pushing. And if Notts win, like I say, we're at that scenario where both teams are almost absolutely neck and neck. And then it's just about who does the best over the final 3 games. Incredible scenario.
Dale Pike, it says Wrexham's game in hand is Yeovil at home. And Ian Cooksey, Maidstone have conceded 92 goals. That could be the golden ticket. Dale Pike retorts, Maidstone is a 4G pitch and we don't do well on them pitches. Ian Cooksey, if goals scored, goal difference and points are the same at the end of the season, and Notts don't get beat on Monday, we go up on the head-to-head record. Because obviously we beat Wrexham earlier in the season. Right. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Oh!
I'm not going to throw in a scenario whereby Wrexham beat us 1-0, but then lose a couple of games and we still end up all level and the head-to-head is 1-1 on aggregate. I won't even go down that route. We'll be picking lots out or something, but yeah. But I say it's just how tight both teams have been. I mean, look, we can say this, can't we, before the game? I think everybody would say that we want. Well, no, everyone won't say we want Notts to win, but whoever doesn't win fully deserves to get promoted. I think, despite all the banter and all the aggro and arguments, and of course we want to win and we'll get up as champion. I think nobody is in dispute that these 2 teams deserve to be promoted because they are as close to head and shoulders above the rest of the teams in the division as you will ever get. But again, that's the beauty of sport. You've got to go and earn it. As we talk about a lot of times, Paul, you don't get anything for near misses. So all the platitudes, all the praise, everything building up to it, both teams need that prize. And again, that's what makes it such a gargantuan game, because the prize is just so. It's a difficult one to come by when there's only one automatic promotion place out of a division. So difficult. Wrexham have been down here how many years now? Over 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah, between 13 and 15 years. Yeah.
So, yeah, something like that. We've only been down here 4 years, but it seems like an eternity. And it seems like you fell through a trap door that you can't get back out of, no matter how close. So, again, both teams are within touching distance of it, touching distance of a prize. And, it's just so difficult to actually get there. So you've got to get over the line. And again, that goes back to Luke Williams playing it down. He'll want his players to realise we are not over the line. We're not hardly in sight of the line. And same for Wrexham. So it is just an incredible scenario, a build up to a game that, it's fantastic. This is what we all love sport for. We all love football because you want to be involved in these, don't you? The feelings that people will have, both Notts and Wrexham fans, will just be the nerves, the excitement, the anticipation. You don't get that wandering down the shops, do you? Or watching EastEnders. I don't watch it. But, this is what sport brings, and it's absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, and you've been reading my questions here, because I was going to say, the point you've made, I'd like to think, we all know what goes off on Twitter and all the rest of it, and social media. But on this forum, I'd like to think we're all respectful. And I think that whatever happens, whoever finishes top this season deserves the top spot. Yeah. If Wrexham, having lost 3-1 at Halifax, beat Notts on Monday, that puts them very, very, very much in the box seat, and they deserve it. Yeah, because quite clearly this is a big, big test for Phil Parkinson and Wrexham players on the back of that 3-1 defeat. And clearly, if we as Notts go there and win, and Wrexham suffer 2 defeats on the bounce, I presume for the first time this season, they lost 3, haven't they?
Yeah.
Then that puts Notts in the best seat. I mean, for me, there's, and I guess you would know this, and it's probably even more polarised now. For me, there with this group of players that Notts County currently have, with the likes of Langstaff, with the like, is the dog attack back to
I've
attack?
just got to let the dog. Hold on, just bear with me, Paul. I am listening. Honestly, the daft thing, he's got arthritis. He's trying to claw at the door to get out. He can't get out the door now. So I've just let him out. He's heard enough.
He's had enough. He's had enough.
Yeah.
What's the score prediction from the dog? Yeah, I know.
He says 4-0 Notts. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, there's a window of opportunity with this group of players. Because Notts have clearly got exceptional players, certainly by National League standards, that don't come along very often. And the reality of the situation is that Notts probably won't have, sorry to say this, guys, Macaulay Langstaff if we're in the National League this season, nor Ruben Rodriguez. That's 2 for starters. So you really want, Stell, this group of players who've done magnificently well all season, but to kind of now rise up, stand up, be counted, call it whatever you will, because this unquestionably is the single most defining moment of the season so far, and I believe we have the players capable of winning it, beating Wrexham on their own patch. And I know I'm not a Lots fans, but it's all very well saying we've got the potential to do that. It's all very well saying, we play better football than Wrexham. It's all very well saying and quoting managers that say Notts County are the better team compared to Wrexham, and all of them sorts of things. But for me, Monday is the time the talking stops. And there's a huge amount of pressure, clearly. But it's a time to deliver, isn't it? It's a time to deliver.
Sport and football is all about delivering. Talk means nothing. Coming second is first loser. That's the saying, isn't it? In sport, no professional at any sport, no professional likes losing. He likes not achieve. Everybody's in it to achieve something, to win something, to pick up accolades or whatever it is. But it's to actually achieve, not have a story in a pub to say, 20 years ago I nearly did something.
Brilliant.
Did I tell you about the time I nearly did something?
Brilliant.
No, mate, bore off. And that's
Brilliant.
it. And that is across the board. It's about achieving and actually doing, not being, after your career or whenever it is, being the bore going, I nearly did something. No, people only remember people who did something. And that's what sport is about. I nearly did something for charity. Well, you didn't do anything then, did you? I nearly helped somebody across the road. I nearly did a good deed. Well, you didn't do it. And sport is just the epitome of it because it's so competitive, so hard fought. And again, this Notts Wrexham game, Wrexham Notts game, is just that, just squeezed into 90 odd minutes of one team we suspect will come out the other side of it and be closer, not quite, but closer to achieving something. And the other team will still nearly have achieved something. And then the other team you think the nearly achieving it is doing it via the playoffs. So you've still got a chance. But it is all about, there's no point for either team. And everybody in the dark recess of their mind is thinking it through, aren't they? Whichever team, be it Notts or Wrexham, that doesn't get the automatic place, it would be absolutely typical that then don't go and win the playoffs. And you're left with a season where we got 109 points, 112 points, 125 goals, or 120, whatever it is. But what have you actually got? Nothing, because we're still in National League next year. And that is the massive fear factor that both teams face in the game and in the remaining games. That is the massive chasm between success and jubilation of achieving something and failure and the dark days of how close, but we achieved. If you come second, where you come, you don't get promoted, you may as well have finished 20th. because you've
Wow.
achieved exactly the same. And so that's what sport is all about. Nobody remembers losers.
Ian Birchinall is trogging round Peyton in Devon, trying to find a pub with BT Sport for Monday. And it is a clever one. It is a clever quip from Ian Cooksey. Stell, you are famous for your get-ins. Your Muttley was trying to exit the room. Ian Cooksey says, a get out from the dog.
Yeah,
Very good, Mr. Cooksey.
yeah,
I like
very
that
good.
one. You'd like that one. Okay, we've come up to an hour. It's Saturday evening. Thank you all very much for joining us. Stel, what do you reckon Monday? Have you got a gut feel? What's
Well,
your take?
yeah, genuinely, I see goals. I've got 3-2 knots in my head. I don't know where that comes from. Again, I'm not the greatest pundit in terms of predictions. So, well, not the greatest pundit, but yeah, in terms of prediction, I'm not always. But I'm like I say, I'll be more confident when I see the pitch, or slightly less confident when I see the pitch. But there's absolutely no way Notts should fear Wrexham. They shouldn't go there with any fear. They've been awesome all season, pretty much. They've got the talent, the ability to win the game. They've got the game to win the game. They've got the tools and the threats and the weapons to win the game. But you could just easily spin that round and say the same about Wrexham. So it's any result can obviously happen. Anything. It's all down to 90 minutes. That's the beauty of it. We can all pontificate and suggest, but I see goals. I see 3-2 to Notts, and I see a jubilant car ride home. But then, if that does happen, then I see realization, reality hitting us of going, oh, crap, we've still got 3 games to go, and we've got Woking at home, which ain't going to be easy, and Maidstone away on a 4G pitch, and wouldn't it be so nuts to take it down to York at home on the last day of the season and be in for a right nerve tingler. So, look, it's a great game, and we're all looking forward to it. But I genuinely think Notts could win it and will win it.
Nigel Cameron, 3-1 Notts. Andrew Blatherwick, 2-1 Notts. Kay asks, can I watch the match abroad on National League TV? Yeah, I believe you can, Kay, because just dropping it in again for those that you missed when I was in Los Angeles watching the game. Yeah, you should be able to. And I didn't actually have to pay a tenner because that was a live BT game. So, yeah, if you go onto that National League TV and click all the various buttons and everything, short answer, yes. Paul Farnsworth, well, he agrees with you still, 3-2. Ian Cooksey, yeah, 3-2 is 25 to 1. A tenner on that, and it would be a good day. I think we all second that. Stel, thank you very much for joining us.
No worries.
Enjoy, everyone, the rest of the Easter weekend. Stel will obviously be there. I'm fortunate enough to be one of the 1,000 that have got a ticket. I know a lot of regular followers weren't able to get a ticket. I think a lot of them will be watching it in various hostelries throughout Nottingham. For all the 1,000 of us that are going to Wrexham, be loud and be proud. I think it promises, Stel, to, short of being at Wembley for a playoff final, I could not have envisaged a game quite like this, with this much pressure, this much potential excitement, this much riding on it. It has all the hallmarks of being, like you said, with live sport, a great privilege to be in that stadium while it's playing out. And of course, none of us has we all have thoughts, but no one has a clue ultimately how it's going to play out. But the fact that we're in that cauldron, Colosseum, Rome, all the rest of it, I think it potentially has the hallmarks of being one of those occasions that we remember for a long time. And I'm certainly hoping it's an occasion we remember for all the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit, I'm looking forward to this, and weirdly, I think I'm looking forward to this game more excited for it than I was the playoff final against Harrogate. Now that partly might have been COVID, no fans there. It felt empty, and obviously we don't want to talk about and dwell on the result and the performance, but I don't think I was as excited, nervous, looking forward to that playoff final against Harrogate as much as I am this game against Wrexham. And I don't know whether that's because this game seems like it's been written in the stars for about 4 months that it's going to be so big. So, and now it's here. It is as big as we expected it to be. And yeah, just can't wait. Like I say, like a kid waiting for Christmas.
Who says the sun doesn't shine on the righteous? As we can see coming in through the window. And in the background, Stel, I can see a couple of guitars. Now then,
Oh, yeah.
if we win on Monday, are you going to give us a tune on the next show?
You've got to be you've got to be kidding. They were a lockdown thing, right? A lockdown thing, right?
Backing out.
Learn to play the guitar, right? And I tell you how far I've got with my progress. I'm just about to get. I can tune them in. That's it. I can tune them up. That's it. It's not took off. Let's put it that way.
You didn't accept the challenge, Stel.
No, but let's win first, and then we'll worry about that afterwards.
Hey, Stel, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to everyone. We'll be back later in the week, and everyone, safe travels to Wrexham. Hope you can all enjoy a great game. To everyone that hasn't got a ticket, I'm sure, at least with it being live on BT, we can all get access to watching the game. Let's bring it on. Thank you for today, and we'll see you all soon. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Cheers.